Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Heather Thompson, and I'm delighted to be your host for the Business Catalyst Supports Program. Today, I am joined by David Rist, who is with EMC Canada, and he is the consortium manager. And today, we're going to be talking a lot about manufacturing. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today and answering a whole bunch of questions. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to dive right in because I think the world that you're in is so fascinating. There's so much going on right now, and there's a lot to it. Maybe to start with, if you can give us a little bit of an overview for some people who are not familiar with your organization. What is it? Why is it so important?
Okay, well, thanks. First off, thanks, Heather, and thanks for having me here today. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I guess I can give you a little bit of an overview around EMC Canada. So EMC's been around for the past 30 years. In the last couple, I guess in the last 18 months, EMC and the Manufacturing Export Enhancement Cluster have kind of joined forces. So I'm now the Manufacturing Consortium Manager for Alberta. And yeah, it's been some exciting times. We cover a unique space. We work with manufacturers, specifically, and we work with manufacturers on a number of different levels. We work with them on the workforce side, mostly productivity. And then the other part that we also work with them on too is on other initiatives that advanced technology, helping them kind of leverage resources in that space, leveraging what resources are available when it comes to like if they need support around like right now tariffs is one of the big things. So we're kind of a catch-all. We do a lot of training as well on training supports. We have a micro-credential program that actually has like I think over 80 courses in it. So there's some stuff there that we also do as well. And then just in general, yeah, just working with manufacturers, trying to help them identify and support what needs they have. And specifically for Alberta right now, we're really kind of launching heavy into trying to really understand the needs of the Alberta manufacturer and how we can help them. Maybe some of that could be with some programming with some of our partners, like the Alberta government and other funding agencies that might be able to support programming for them as well too. So
I mean, something we're hearing all the time is just how important manufacturing is to the economy.
it is.
We're hearing it so much right now.
It's the second largest. I guess it'd be number two in terms of what supports Alberta's economy. As an economy in general, Alberta would be the second largest manufacturing hub in Canada as far as where manufacturing is concerned. Actually, the region here is the number two region outside of Southern Ontario. So we've got a very important role to play in manufacturing, and it isn't just supporting oil and gas. It's also supporting the food and egg sector. There's a number of other industries. You name it, we're in it. And Alberta has a real important part to play in that.
And we'll talk about tariffs here in a second, but generally speaking, as you talked about diversification, are you optimistic? Are you excited to see just the overall new industries that are coming into the region? Because I'm hearing about it all the time, but are you optimistic, or are you feeling like we need to diversify even more to make sure that we're competitive and we can keep on the trajectory of growth that we're on?
Oh, I'm really optimistic. Despite what's happening with tariffs, Alberta's positioned to do quite well here in the next 5 years. We're going to see some amazing growth, I think, in the province. I mean, it's probably going to be flat over the next 18 months, but that's just due to the change with what's happening with our partners in the US. But overall, I think the economic climate in Alberta is primed for more expansion and more growth. And that's really exciting to see. So I just will continue to see that growth happen, and it's going to be in all sectors just because of a lot of the pro-business initiatives and supports that are in place, specifically in our region and throughout the province as well too.
Okay, and let's go on the other side of that coin. What is something that is maybe making you feel a little bit worried or concerned, or maybe an obstacle that you see coming our way that we should be paying attention to?
I think one of our biggest obstacles right now is workforce. So workforce is a huge obstacle, and it's not just in manufacturing, it's in all areas. Unfortunately, we have a workforce that's aged out, and a workforce that's just behind it that didn't fill that whole bucket, and then we've had to rely on foreign temporary workers,
Yep.
and so that's creating a gap, a labor gap, and we just with the young generation that's coming up, there is still going to be a huge gap there. So there's just not enough
Mhm.
skilled labor to support what's happening. So that becomes a little bit of a concern. I mean, we're lucky that we're in a time that we're in where we're seeing automation take a bigger role in manufacturing. So I would say that would be a bit of a concern. Um, I think there is some concern also a little bit too around tariffs. That's what I hear from some of the manufacturers. It's not as much as it would say in some of the other regions in the country, though. And I think some of the concerns on that is just navigating the the USMCA CUSMA agreement and how they can get goods across the border efficiently. And that right now, just because of a lot of what's happening, I think that's probably one of the biggest problems. And then just try to figure out where you're going to be sourcing material. So
Right.
how do I get a supply? How do I supply source in a supply chain?
Mhm.
How can I leverage what's here?
Yeah.
So that's the other one. I think the supply chain, and we're working on a project right now with the Alberta Chamber of Commerce
Oh, great.
called Supply Flow that
Yeah.
I think will be a great initiative that will solve a lot of those problems.
Awesome. I think you just articulated so many of the intricacies that you have to be thinking about.
Yeah.
Maybe just to start with really quickly, the labor market. When you look at what's happening, even federally, but even specifically in Alberta, our unemployment rate is it's really high. So it seems like we have a lot of jobs and we just don't have a lot of workers. And whether it's because we didn't do a good job with the immigration policy to match the skills, or a lot of young people are just not choosing these sort of jobs. Curious to know your take on if you see a solution, if there was something that you could do to help alleviate some of that pressure, because we're hearing it again and again and again, how we're saying there are so many jobs available, but the unemployment rate is high.
So I would say all of the above to what you're just saying in terms of all the different macro things that are affecting the current environment here in Alberta. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Just I think we've done a very poor job of making trades, skilled trades, sexy to young people, and we haven't started that young enough.
Yeah.
So one of the things I've been trying to work on is how can we get skilled trades people, or skilled trades kids interested in the elementary school
Hmm.
level
Hmm.
and build on that so that we actually have people, because a lot of those skilled trades require the same level of education as you would need for someone who's potentially going to go to university.
Yep.
They've got a lot of technical skills that would kind of, I would say, and it would parallel what you'd see in an engineering kind of type
Of
program.
course.
So so from that perspective, we need to start there. That's one area that we need to start. Um, so yeah, so we also, when we talk about unemployment, we definitely struggle on that front. It's the side is with our youth,
Hmm.
and I think some of that is also due to the fact that we haven't done a good enough job, again, when they get out of high school, funding them into programs that will get them into jobs
Yeah.
where there's a job at the other end,
Yep.
because there's lots of jobs.
Yep.
It's just, it seems like our young people right now are lost.
Yeah, very unaware. It's actually interesting. The video, one of the video series that we just did yesterday was on careers. It's a company, it's an organization that is funded largely through industry and government, but that's literally what they do. They place high school kids in different career opportunities as interns. And so it's exactly everything you just said. So it's good to see that there's different organizations in place to help with that. But I was just so curious because your world, like you said, it's so important to our economy. Um, I also wanted to just kind of highlight and touch on the technology side. You said that that's good news. There's lots of opportunity for advancement and automation. How is AI and digital technology? How is this taking over the space? And I guess more importantly, what's the attitude about it?
Oh, it's interesting. That's a good question. I think it depends on who you're talking to. When I talk with people in industry, Most people, I think, are open to AI and see it as a tool. There are some people that are, I think, a bit scared of it, but I think the intimidation factor that comes with AI is from not really understanding how to use it. But a lot of it is just understanding how to leverage that tool,
Yep.
how to use it for the analytics side, where it can take and automate and just make things simpler.
Yeah.
And as a tool, we talk about labor. Um, Now we have this labor gap, and I only have 20 people in my shop that I can work with. Tools like AI actually make that so much simpler. Maybe now I don't need to hire as many admin staff, or I can focus the admin staff I have on other tasks
Yep.
because AI can take and automate process.
Yep.
And so that's a big part of where AI, I think, is going in the manufacturing world, is leveraging it for the analytics, the how to harvest your data and use your data more effectively and efficiently, um, scheduling tools.
Yep. It's really interesting because from as a country, we have low adoption rates in AI, and I think that we're seeing lots of investment
Yeah.
through all levels of government to make sure that we're catching up. And I like that saying that like AI is not going to take our jobs.
No,
People who know how to use AI are going to take our jobs.
exactly.
And that's a very clear distinction to make, and I want to make sure that everyone knows that.
I would say that anybody who is looking at AI right now and learns how to use it properly as an early adopter,
Yeah.
they're going to get an advantage.
Yeah.
You can see it in other industries where people have adopted
Yeah.
and leveraged. It's giving them an edge in
Yeah.
terms of what they're able to do and how they're able to compete.
Yeah.
And when you're talking a competitive environment like we are right now, we're on a global stage with all the flux with what's happening with the tariffs. This is just another one of the ways that you could use to make your business more efficient.
And we're talking about that competitive advantage, left, right, and center. And so you're right. It's kind of like you don't really have a choice. You have to adopt this,
Oh, you definitely do.
or yeah, you're going to get left behind. And one of the things that we're hearing about with the tariffs is the actual impact of tariffs hasn't been as significant, I think, as what people were forecasting for in terms of the actual loss. So I want to get your take on that. But I also, what I'm hearing is the larger impact is the lack of investment, or the waiting to invest to see where the tariff situation is going to land. So curious to know from your perspective in this manufacturing sector, how are you finding that? Are you finding that businesses are withholding investment and waiting it out, or are you finding that we're still relatively doing quite well?
I think as a province, we're doing quite well. I mean, I think there are regions, we were talking about this earlier, that are suffering more than others. Um, but overall, I don't know that the tariffs are making it as big an impact on Alberta as maybe they are in other regions. Um, some of that I think is just due to the economic climate that we have here, and that we are fairly pro-business, and we've been able to attract other investment into the province. Now, when we talk about the bigger projects, a lot of what you see in the news right now, I think there is a reluctancy to hold back on some of those bigger
Mhm.
projects. And I think anything probably tied into energy
Yeah.
right now, especially with declining gas prices and a lot of the other things that are going on, I think you're going to probably see that pretty flat. But I think when you're talking small to medium sized manufacturing, and anything that I think, um, we're adding value and it's goods that are going to a direct consumer,
Mhm.
probably more here locally, I think that's just going to continue to grow.
Yep.
I do think that you're going to probably see in the next couple of years, probably Albertans in general are usually pretty conservative when it comes to when times do change. We've been through enough boom bust stuff
Mhm.
to see. So people are always a little bit more reluctant to invest and risk, um, when times are tougher. Becomes the challenge
Yeah.
with what I do, is getting people to understand that investment is it's right time to invest now.
No. Yep.
Because if you invest now, right, you look at the current climate, there's all kinds of programs that are being offered through the government right now, both federally and provincially. Um, the other thing too is investing in your processes, investing in shoring up your business and becoming more efficient
Yep.
when times are tighter,
Yep.
makes you a stronger business. And then when that business upticks,
Yep.
then you're going to start to see this change, and you're going to be able to manage with a leaner staff.
Yep.
So it's convincing manufacturers in the ROI
Yep.
upfront of that investment in that risk.
Yep.
So yes, I would say we're still going to see investment in the province. Are our manufacturers' wallets maybe a little tighter than they were maybe 18 months ago?
Mhm.
Yeah, probably.
Right.
But I don't think it's going to be enough that it's going to slow the economy down to a
Right.
point where we're going to see a standstill or a recession.
That's
So
great news.
I hope,
Yeah, that's great. And
I'm not an economist, but
no, I think I think there's a lot of indicators for that as well. And I think, largely Alberta is always in such a better financial state than the rest of the country in so many elements. I would like to know, just for fun, like, your perspective. Best case scenario, what happens in the next 3 to 5 years? What happens in this manufacturing sector, and you're in your industry, that, like, what are you hoping that you're going to see?
what do I hope to see?
Hmm.
Um, I'm a realist, so I mean, I hope we continue to see 3 to 5% growth.
Yep.
I think if we can see that here in this province, that's really good. I think we need time to catch up. So one of the things that I really hope we can do in the next 3 to 5 years is figure out a way to solve some of the labor gap issues that we have, and the time it takes to get funding to the manufacturers when it's needed, and help them iterate and solve those industry issues as quickly as possible. That would be kind of my perfect world. And as far as where I see things, I think that's where I hope we end up going.
Yeah, just unlocking that, like, full potential. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I see. Yeah, that's a big barrier to that. So I think it's safe to say that manufacturing is complicated. And I think, it's so great that organizations like yours are out there to make it seem less complicated, because it's so important, and it's such a critical need for not just our economy, but for people's life, like, beyond the economic. We actually need these things to live. So curious to know if you can give us a little bit of, like, maybe a few success stories that you've encountered along your way, maybe like super small ones or even the larger impact. Just curious to know what some of those are.
Oh, there's so many good stories. I don't think in the last 4 years we've had one bad one. It's been actually so much fun. But some of my favorite ones are the ones that are helping when we're talking the mom and pop style manufacturing shops, the ones that are, maybe 5 employees or less. And so one of the ones that actually sticks out in my mind is we worked with a manufacturer that actually works in the modular home trailer business. They manufacture the skirting that goes around the bottom of the trailer. Fantastic organization, and they were looking to break into a bigger market into the U.S. And but with 4 employees,
Mm.
increasing throughput to 100 to take on the additional workload that would be coming with the work they were getting from home builders in the Pacific Northwest. They were kind of struggling to figure out how they were going to do that. So that one actually was a really interesting project, because we spent basically 2.5 days on site.
Mm.
And that 2.5 days, we taught lean fundamentals. We went through and really dug into their bottlenecks in terms of what was actually happening on site. And through that whole process, we were able to increase their throughput by over 50%, like almost double. It was insane how much we were able to increase it. And it was just by simply changing some of the workbenches that they had in their process, and how they handled the workflow and how the workflow went through. So, and
What would a timeline be? Like, when you say 50%, like, from, like, start to, like, to that outcome, like, what kind
in
of
that
time
case,
frame?
because
Yeah.
of the size of company, it
Yeah.
was smaller companies can adapt and iterate much quicker.
Yeah.
So we were able to, there was a minimal amount of cost. I think the company itself, outside of the little bit of money they spent to have us come in for a couple days, I think it was maybe $10,000 to change some of their equipment out. So it was a small amount of money with a huge return, and just to reshape kind of how they did the workflow.
Mhm.
They were within probably a week able to increase their workflow by that much. So so sometimes little
Yeah.
changes are huge. And a lot of times when we're talking about advanced manufacturing, this was always something like when we got started, I always said, advanced equipment, automation, it's great, but that's not the starting point, right? You can't like you can't fix something unless you have good process.
Mhm.
And so the manual process of how you do things has to be good before you can move into any kind of digital tool or start implementing automation on your floor. Because if you take those pieces, those ticks with you, all those little things inherently that are causing problems
Yeah.
and move them into the new workflow, they just carry over.
Right.
And then actually a lot of times with technology and digital solutions, they become magnified.
Right.
So having good process up front and making sure the mechanical processes, both with your staff and how things move from the front end, maybe right from the time you get a drawing from conception, because a lot of the work that we do in Alberta is what I call it's high batch, low volume manufacturing. So we are the kings of that world when it
Right.
comes to making unique widgets and parts. Very different than other regions in the country that are maybe more widget based that support industries like say automotive.
Right.
We're a little bit more unique, and people know that. Like so, we're like our main markets in the U.S. and Europe and Asia that buy from Alberta manufacturers, they come to us because of the know-how to make those parts. So that's a big thing. But to do that, you got to start there, and that's kind of the so I love that story because the owner was so grateful to us after we came to site. It was probably the best money he's ever spent, and he was a small guy, so he didn't have a lot of money to spend, and so we were able to do this affordably for him and really help his business. Um,
I think that trends, as you're talking about, like getting your ducks in a row, I'm paraphrasing, getting your ducks in a row before a large transition or a large investment makes so much sense. And it's like that notion of like slowing down to speed up a little bit. And
yes, exactly.
like as
I
you're
love
saying it, I'm
your
like, they
analogy.
have to do that.
That slowing down to speed up is so important. A
Yeah.
lot of businesses don't get that, and
Yeah.
and you're right. That's absolutely it. So.
How's the attitude around like are they coming to you and saying, "Oh my gosh, I don't even know what I don't know. Like help." Or are you out there and saying like we should look at this. We should look at that.
The smaller ones, yes.
Yeah.
The ones that are really receptive to help and change
Yeah.
definitely are. I,
Yeah.
I love working with those people because they just want to grow their business and they know they only know what they know,
Yeah.
but they're open-minded. It gets a little tougher when you become a little bigger.
Yeah.
Like we typically work with organizations like, so EMC Canada works with all manufacturers, but when we talk about small to medium-sized manufacturers, they're typically under 500 employees. So anything that gets over 100 starts to
Mhm.
become more complicated. There's there's a lot more steps and processes that things have to go through. So that becomes daunting for an owner sometimes to make those culture changes, right? But smaller companies, they're under 20 employees, to adapt and change and iterate.
Mhm.
They have the flexibility that they can do that fairly quick on the fly. So those ones are fun. It is fun though working with bigger manufacturers though too. And I would say companies that are between 100 to 500 employees. We've worked with lots of those too. And um, I have I have one story from last year. Fantastic organization here that's local, and we were able to help them on a number of different levels on the productivity side, working with their team on the floor and increasing productivity, and just finding some different ways that their lean team could actually become better.
Mhm.
And then we also work with post-secondaries as well too to solve problems. So we have a relationship with Red Deer Polytechnic as well too, and Dr. Tanya Wolf's team. Fantastic group of people there, and we were able to work with them on some technical issues with some product that they're releasing
Mhm.
and trying to commercialize. And so that's kind of cool when you get to
Yeah.
work with them on that side. And work on the more highly technical part and helping them iterate their product to get it to market.
Yeah.
And then the other part that we're able to do too is helping them solve issues maybe in the manufacturing process. So one of the things we were able to do with that is we have a hackathon that we put on every year. And so we actually deployed, because they were volunteers, but post-secondary students
Oh,
to
cool.
solve industry problems that they could present on at our hackathon,
Cool.
and which is even more interesting. So
How many students, like just for fun?
I think in this hackathon there was, I think about participant wise, it was a smaller group
Yep.
that went through, but I think about 25 or 30
Very
students.
cool.
Yeah, and we had students from U of A, and from RDP, from various schools
Yeah.
around the area. Um, Real interesting to see how they all work. But
Mhm.
what's kind of cool with this one project is we had students actually working with the manufacturer. And what I love about these kinds of synergies, we talk about workforce issues. We talk about, how do we solve the productivity gap? How do we automate? How do we work with more and less? The great thing is we're hitting all of those
Yeah.
areas, because
Yep.
through that project now we exposed 5 students to the possibility of opportunity to work with a manufacturer like this textiles company. So they got to interview basically 5 candidates that maybe potentially down the road might become future employees,
Right.
right? So there is an opportunity to engage workforce, to get students actually onto a job site in front of employers, solving a problem that we basically worked on. I call this fairly quick iteration. Um, Start to finish, the whole project was probably 6 months, but some of the
Cool.
problems
Yeah.
they solved within maybe 6 to 8 weeks.
Oh, just so interesting. I can just see these businesses and these organizations that are like, I want to be there when they start to see these problems being solved and moving forward. I think that like
Yeah,
sometimes you're just the frog in water. I find with organizations and even like, in businesses I've worked in, when we've had that fresh perspective, it's like, oh, it was there all along. I just either I couldn't see it or I didn't have the skill set or I was too busy. I think that's the other thing. We see so many people working in their business. They don't have time to work on their business. And I think that's like exactly everything you're saying, where they can actually have that perspective and move forward. And ultimately, and I know this is a weird thing to say, but I think one of the things that we should probably be a little bit more maybe bold in saying is just like it's good to make money. Like
it
it's
is.
good to make profits. And I think that is one of those things where I just feel like we need to be a little bit more bold in our quest for generational wealth.
Well, you had asked me earlier about kind of one of the areas that concern me,
Hmm.
challenges. One of the things that does concern me when it comes to that whole de-risking and get investing when times potentially are tough,
Yeah.
that is one thing that we struggle with. And I, it's a resistance sometimes to that change. But what I will tell you is companies that, like these 2 businesses that went through that program, when we see companies actually embrace
Yep.
going through programs like this, those are the ones that actually adapt quicker.
Yep.
They're the ones who survive the storm better, and they are able to react more nimbly when the market is more volatile.
Yep.
And so, and comparatively, if you look at how businesses invest in risk, and how they're willing to invest in adoption of change management, lean, all these things in the U.S.,
Yep.
they're very pro. They're very there's less barrier
Yep.
for them to want to be involved with that. There's less reluctance, and a lot of times industry there will pay to be involved.
Right.
And so
Mhm.
this is our struggle. This is what concerns me as somebody who's been in manufacturing for almost 20 years in this province, is seeing the reluctance of manufacturers sometimes willing to invest
Yep.
in programs like this that are actually giving them money to
Yep.
actually help them. So it's so, but when you see the change, so this is the thing, is how do we change that mindset?
Right.
We have to just keep going.
Yep.
So
It's so interesting because we have that that lens of what has gotten us to this point has been, sometimes people think that's good, that's sufficient, and it's just not true. What got us here is not going to get us to there.
No.
And it's also like, it's so much more difficult now than it was probably before the pandemic. And with all of this uncertainty, I think this is just the new norm. And I think the people who can adapt and the businesses that can change and be a little bit more nimble are the ones that are going to make money in the long run, because it's not
Definitely.
going anywhere. So right now in Canada, there's a lot of red flags that are being thrown around by economists. And one of the biggest ones, apart from labor force, is this whole notion of productivity. And when we look at Canada compared to the other G7 countries, Canada's not doing well from a productivity perspective. I think that this is something that is very much in your lane. So I'm curious to know what your perspective is on that, and how are we improving productivity, and how do we keep this very important metric? How do we work on this?
It's a great question, Heather. No, productivity is a big part of, I think, one of the bigger problems that we do have in
Mhm.
manufacturing here in Canada is maintaining productivity. Some of it is labor and workforce, but some of it also too is a lack of understanding or knowledge around some of the methodologies and ways that manufacturers can get better when it comes to continuous improvement.
Mhm.
So, and a lot of times too, there's a lot of misinformation that's also out there as well too. So, not understanding kind of what like lean would be or a Six Sigma program would be, and there are even organizations that are out there that are plugging some of these productivity initiatives that really themselves are not demonstrating or showing
Right.
the right way. So I would say, um, it's a huge issue. It's an issue. It's something that we've been working in that space for many years. Um, and right now, I think for us is really just bringing awareness,
Yeah.
and productivity can be. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Hmm.
So a lot of manufacturers, I think they think getting into and going down that road that it's going to be complicated, or they've been down that road, maybe with the wrong person. And then because they've gone down that road with the wrong person, there's a bad taste in their
Yeah.
mouth
Yeah.
because somebody's trying to tell them how to run their business. And
Yeah.
really honestly, the way anything with productivity works, it has to work with what works best for your business.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way we work around productivity. And productivity in terms of some of the programming and things. One of the things I really coach and and really talk about when people ask me to talk about productivity is really it's the simple things. It's just the little things that you need to be
Yeah.
looking at and doing. It's first maybe figuring out, it's starting small, and it's that whole snowball effect. You start with something small, it will grow and get, and
Yeah.
as you keep going
Yep.
down the road and find more and more of these little like as you solve one bottleneck, you'll solve another bottleneck, which will solve another problem, and you'll continue to get those improvements over time. But you got to start small.
Yep.
You don't start on the biggest thing
Yep.
or try and solve all of it all at once. And it's a process. It takes time. So you don't your business is on a journey.
Yep.
It's much like raising a kid.
I'm literally thinking that exact thing. It is. It's like the days are long, the years are short, one step at a time. Like,
Yeah,
so it's just it's like eating an elephant.
yeah.
Like, you have to start.
You have to start, but
Yep.
you eat in small pieces.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's funny you bring that up. I'd say don't eat the elephant. Just start with the small pieces
Yep.
and sort of build.
Yep.
It's a crescendo. And so as you start taking smaller chunks out of it,
Hmm.
you will get better. And so that's I think that's a big part of it, and it's the investment that we put into that. So
Yeah.
I think our struggle as a nation, and what I see provincially, is we're not putting enough energy into
Yeah.
finding those ways to be productive. Here in Alberta, I think one of the reasons why we've become that way is we've been blessed with the oil and gas industry.
Yeah.
Um, and so when you're in an environment where people can just spend
Hmm.
and they'll say like just throw money at it, to
Yep.
get it down the road and done. So it's manpower and money to get things done. That's not necessarily the best way
No,
to make something work.
not necessarily productive.
And it's not necessarily the most productive way. So
Yep.
so it's changing that mindset to like, okay, no, we need to work efficiently.
Yep.
We need to find the most efficient path to get the task done.
Yep.
So, and sometimes it's simple things that don't cost a lot of money that
Yep.
actually can make the biggest difference.
Totally. Can you give us an idea about what sort of partnerships your organization has? And I'd also love to ask about funding models and just curious to know, like, how do you intersect with different organizations to make yourselves more successful?
Okay. Well, this is great. Um, both I guess EMC and then I guess my previous relationship, we were all about partnerships. So EMC loves partnering, especially with community partners. So we have a lot of we have a lot of good relationships with community partners. Economic Developers Association of Alberta, the EDA, we're big partners with them. We have lots of partnerships across the country as well too. We partner with the federal government, the Government of Alberta, organizations like NGen, post-secondaries, um, chambers.
Mm,
We have a partnership with the Alberta Chamber of Commerce. We love to get involved with informally at the local level also too with the local chambers like
mm,
the Edmonton Chamber,
yep.
Calgary Economic Development, Sturgeon County, why we're here today.
Yep.
So we have lots of different partnerships. And partnership can be a number of different things. It can be about bringing awareness to programming that's available. So kind of this discussion like what we're having today. Sometimes it takes on more than just that. So it's actually building out a program that actually can actually help the manufacturing community and engage with some other partners to bring that forward because a lot of times people don't understand that a lot of the programming, even if there is funding that comes from, say, a government source,
Mhm.
you need more than just one group of
Right.
people to kind of bring it home, right?
Right.
So, and collaboration is a huge thing because um, we're a big proponent of that because what we have seen in the past, and I don't know if you've seen this, but programming that's done in a siloed environment is not good. What happens is we end up with a situation where we'll have a bunch of these little programs that are out there, but it's not really hitting the solution head on.
Yep.
And it might just be to solve one problem, maybe in one area, in one region. And then you end up with all these different programs kind of overlapping each other. We like to see consolidation in the space because it's important because for manufacturers, we want an easy entry point for them.
Sure.
You know, when you talk about programming and getting involved, if I'm a manufacturer, if I'm a business, and this is something that businesses always struggle with, the chamber would know this. You guys probably deal with this all the time, people not understanding what programming is out there. If it's too hard for them to
Totally.
access
Yep.
or they have to dig too hard, then they just stop.
Totally.
At EMC, our focus is on making things navigable for the business owner.
Awesome.
We want to make it so it's a very low threshold of entry to get in. So, just going on our website, if they see something they like, they can register. Right now here in Alberta, our focus is really on engagement. So anything that we have on our websites, I encourage people to just go and sign up.
So walk me through this a little bit granularly. So I'm a business. I go to your website. Tell me what happens when I sign up.
It just depends on what it is you're looking for. So if you're looking for programming, so we do have membership and non-membership
Yep.
like programming for members,
Okay.
and there is programming that's available to non-members as well too. So I encourage people to sign up and become a member. And the main reason we encourage that is because there's discounts for members. And there's things that are included in their membership, like access to manufacturing masters, which is a
Mhm.
fantastic program.
Very cool.
So, but signing up is really quite simple. So if you
Okay.
see something that you like, if there's a program that you like, we have a number of different programs, funded, unfunded programming, productivity initiative programming. You find something, you sign up, a representative will reach out. If it's a webinar or event, you just come,
Yep.
and you'll get a nice email that tells them basically to come to the event. But somebody will actually reach out to you and have a conversation with you. And if it's here locally, sometimes it'll be me, or it will be one of my colleagues in our head office.
Yep.
So But yeah, I mean, ultimately very low egress in terms of getting into any kind of
Mhm.
programming that we offer. So, and we have lots of different supports in place. Everything from support, we have a program called Member Needs Help. That's been now deployed to actually help specifically with a lot of the tariff relief that's going
Yeah.
on right now. So people are struggling with tariffs. So if somebody is struggling, and one of the things that we see a lot with that, and you're talking about programming that could really help right now that manufacturers are looking for, we have a brokerage that we work with, and brokerage error is one of the most common things
Mm.
with goods going across the border.
Yeah.
We have somebody who's a specialist in that.
I had just learned about this a couple months ago when we hosted a manufacturing roundtable. And that is like, again, like what a service that unless you know about it, you have no idea that that would even really exist. So like, yeah, you're right to highlight those things where it's like, oh yeah, I could see how even people around the table are like, oh, I didn't know about that. So there's so much to that strength and that collaboration. Like it just makes
Oh yeah,
all the
well,
sense in the world.
yeah, I mean, and so being part of our or being part of a community is
Mhm.
another way. So we do have like right now we are starting a group in the Leduc Industrial Park that's open to all manufacturers in the region.
Yeah,
Go onto the website under EMC Alberta, you'll see my face there,
perfect.
and there is events constantly happening.
Awesome.
And just sign up
Okay.
and reach out to me,
Yep.
and I will be happy to. I'll have my email and everything available for
Yeah.
anybody who's watching this as well
Yeah.
too.
I want to know from you, like, what did I not ask you? What is something that I didn't ask you or you didn't get a chance to say that you'd like to say?
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I think we covered a lot today.
Yep.
Um, I would just say come to our events.
Okay.
I think the biggest advantage for a manufacturer right now is just coming out. The investment of time, whether it's virtual or in person, is not a huge one. We realize that they're business people, so our events are structured in that fashion. So even our big forums that we're having, we have two coming up here in November. They're half-day events.
Nice.
So if somebody wants to spend a whole day,
Hmm.
we do have plant tours that we do when we do them, and we showcase local facilities. So we have a couple that will be showcased here in Edmonton, which is great. And you can see how other manufacturers are doing things and share ideas. That's the big part of what we're trying to do is build the community here,
Hmm.
so that people, when they do need something, there's a peer group. There's also people with resources that are there to support them and have their back. So my biggest ask would be
Hmm.
come to our events,
Okay.
sign up, come to a virtual event.
Yep.
If you got questions, um, reach out directly to me.
Yep.
I'm always happy to have a coffee.
Awesome. And I think that the collaboration and connectedness, it's just like it's a bit of a dotted line.
It
Because then
is.
you feel connected. You're like, I didn't think about that. I should ask about that. And it's just you're kind of you're on the train.
We didn't cover half of it today.
Totally. Yeah. No, but I really do appreciate your time and talking with me today. And I mean, I've learned a ton. And so I think, yeah, if anyone has more conversations or questions, they know how to get in touch. And yeah, this was absolutely fascinating. So thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Awesome.